Everybody knows I did start the recording and transcription, so if you do not wish to be recorded, now is the time to go ahead and hop off the call, or just know that you can stay on mute and with your camera off. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abby Quinn. I am down here in Dallas, Texas, and I'm joined by my colleague, Gabrielle Allen. We are both federal customer success managers. And today's session is a product of the productivity showcase that's currently being put on by the Modern Work for Gov team, which is the team I work with to create scaled events for our federal and government customers across the United States. And this is the rescheduled rerun of a little bit of a technical mess up earlier in the year. So we're doing this session again, and it is our inclusive productivity and action session. We're checking out to see this lunch and learn style, if this timing works. And we will be having another session for the Modern Work for Gov series on Thursday of this week in the afternoon. And if anyone would like that invitation or the link to register for that event, please let me know in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Gabrielle to get us kicked off. And I hope everyone has a great time. And I will be on again at the end of the call to, again, go over what we have coming up and help answer any questions that have come up through the session.
Awesome. Thank you for the warm introduction, Abby. So happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. I know we're all coming back just from having really good meals and spending time with family and friends. So I just want to first start off by thanking you for joining us for this lunch and learn and creating time to learn about how we can create a more inclusive and accessible work environment for everyone. So with that being said, welcome to the Inclusive Productivity and Action Lunch and Learn. My name is Gabrielle Allen, and today I will be sharing how we can create an accessible work environment that empowers everyone to achieve more with Microsoft Teams. Now, you may have seen a few different accessibility presentations or even productivity sessions where we may cover M365 as a whole, but we can, visit M365 when we have a little more time. But today we're going to focus in on Teams, especially with the understanding that with remote work, a lot of us are getting work done in Teams specifically. So with that being said, I want to start off by saying there are no limits to what people can achieve when technology reflects the diversity of everyone who uses it. Building accessibility into everything we do helps us empower people of all abilities to achieve more and do more of what they love. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to create inclusive technology that works for all of us. We have learned a lot on our accessibility journey here at Microsoft, and we would like to help with yours because we know that by working together, we can unlock new ideas and solutions that will lead to greater innovation for everyone. So let's look at what we're going to explore today via our agenda. So today, we will discuss what work looks like now. It's very clear that with the global pandemic and throughout the last, not even year, but 2 years, things have changed. Some of us are working directly from home 100% of the time. Some of us are working hybrid, where we're going into the office 1 to 3 times a week. So we want to just address that for one and just, kind of identify with how everyone is feeling. And then we're going to go into what is accessibility. Accessibility can mean a lot of different things for different people in different industries. So we want to just hit on that. We're also going to discuss inclusion in the workplace. Then we'll hop over to Teams for a demonstration of the inclusive features built into our product. I'll provide the excellent accessibility resources and accessibility support that we have at the end of our presentation, and then we'll close out with a brief Q&A. And just a heads up, as far as Q&A, I will be answering questions around what is presented today. If you do have any direct questions around, any features or capabilities in your tenant that may be specific to your tenant, then we can, get you connected to EDA. We can get you connected even to myself so that we can make sure we escalate those issues to the right place. But today's Q&A will be directly for the content that's presented today. All right, so let's get started. So our reality now is that we are living in a changed world. Whether that looks like working from your dining room table and you have your child eating breakfast directly across while you're taking a meeting, or you could be taking the hybrid approach, as I mentioned earlier, and visiting the office 1 to 3 times a week and working from home for the rest of the week, or you can be working fully remote. What I want to highlight here is that whatever your scenario is, we are still a connected society and we can remain connected in our work, in our education, and our daily lives, managing our productivity with technology that meets all of our diverse needs. With that being said, With our current work from home culture, it has never been more important to focus on how we can include everyone and ensure that they can be productive. Remote working, learning, and information sharing can be more challenging as digital content and platforms are not always accessible. However, we recognize that accessibility is the vehicle to enable inclusion of people with disabilities and ensuring productivity for all. So with that being said, now that we've kind of gone over what work looks like, now let's explore really what accessibility is and how that can differentiate across our industries. As we think about what our accessibility journey might look like, the first question many people may ask is, what exactly is accessibility? Transparently, it can mean very different things to many different people. When some people think of accessibility, we think about designing buildings and structures with accessibility in mind. Some of us have compliance or Section 508 compliance standards that we have to follow in our organization. Or some may also think about digital accessibility, ensuring that people are connected to other people and information, and that they have the user interfaces that are customizable and adaptive for each of their needs. But really, just to simplify accessibility, it's about enabling people to achieve whatever it is they want to achieve. It's about letting people fully participate and contribute. Ultimately, it's creating experiences that are better for everyone as it pertains to technology, especially. So now we're going to discuss So now we're going to discuss creating an inclusive workplace environment. At Microsoft, our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. One significant step in doing so is by creating an inclusive workplace that empowers all employees to work in a way that works best for them. As we know, everyone thinks and works differently, and it's important that all of our unique needs are met to enhance productivity across our organization. And so with that being said, I want to take a little pause here before going further and ask you, how are you proactively promoting inclusive work environment for all of your employees? If you all have the opportunity to hop in the chat, I would love to know, like, what are some ways that you're creating inclusive meetings and creating inclusive teams channel environments, or even just how you're promoting that today. And if you happen to say, I'm not really sure how I'm doing that, or I think I can do a lot better, which I'm sure all of us can say, I'm happy to show you a lot of the different features and capabilities in Microsoft Teams. I'm going to be demonstrating them. So you'll be able to go back to your organization, your teams, and show them all of the different built-in accessible features and capabilities that are going to promote this inclusive environment. And before I go on, Abby, I am presenting. So if there are any questions in the chat or any comments in the chat, definitely let me know.
Yep, I definitely will.
All right. Thank you. So to round out this portion of our lunch and learn, where we just kind of went through the importance, the what's and the whys, I want to highlight that one of our biggest learnings has been that accessibility needs to be built into the company culture and throughout everything that we do, and not bolted on later in the process. Meaning that if in the past you had to adapt to the world and the technology and what's already there, our goal is that in the future, the world will adapt to each of our individual needs and preferences. So with that being said, I'm happy to move over into my demonstration environment so that we can, look over, what does Microsoft Teams have currently for accessibility? How can we, promote inclusive behaviors in Microsoft Teams now? So I am going to quickly stop sharing. Just give me one quick moment. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to move over into my demo environment. And I'm also just to increase bandwidth, I am going to stop my camera because sometimes it will act a little funny if I
Mhm.
have my camera on. So let me know when you can see my screen.
It looks good.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we are in Megan Bowen's environment. This is a demonstration environment. All of the data here is specifically for our demonstration environment. So no privacy issues. But today I'm Megan. So in Megan's environment, what I want to highlight today specifically is how we can promote some of our mobility features, some of our vision features, and I also want to cover some hearing. features as well. So first, let's start off in our search bar. So in our search bar, Megan typically logs in every day and she will say, oh, I want to chat with Patty Fernandez. Now, typically we'll type in Patty's name, but a way in which we can automate this process is by hitting the forward slash. And this forward slash actually drops down a list of commands that allows for one-handed or just keyboard specific mobility to get work done. So if we're trying to search activity for specifically Patty, we can actually click activity and it'll pop up just our most recent individuals we've been connecting with, and Patty is first on my list. So if I click Patty's name, then all of Patty's recent activity pops up for me. And I'm doing this with one hand. I'm also doing this only with my keyboard. So if you're wanting to leverage only your keyboard or only your mouse, this is an opportunity to kind of, teach your organization or your teams if there are any type of mobility needs that needs to be met. This is how we would do that. I also want to highlight another command. So if we forward slash and you're looking at, hey, I am available right now. My status is set on available. Everyone thinks I'm free, but I'm taking a lunch break. Instead of, what we would normally do, and let me click away to just show you what the typical behavior is. The typical behavior will be to go to the top right corner, to click your profile, and then go to where your settings are, and you'll get a drop down where you would show and yes, April, that is correct. And I was going to get to the keyboard shortcuts just shortly. So I'm glad to know that some of us are already educated on that. So we would drop down here and select our status, but we actually can do this here in the search bar as well. If we click forward slash and they show us that we can click available, away, be right back, busy, and let's just say I want to be right back for lunch. I can absolutely just click that and it will change my status from available to that I'll be right back. And as April said in the chat, there is a keyboard shortcut to do that as well, which I'll review in just a little. One more command that I just want to review, and definitely take time to just right now, if you're, as you're in Microsoft Teams, walk through this with me, click the forward slash, see what's available, and just kind of poke around and see what you can do. We also can access files here. If you want to, look at files, whether that's OneNote, whether that's in your Teams channels, you can access your files and they'll drop down most likely more files than just here because this is a demo environment. Megan's OneDrive, her OneNote is the most recent file that we'd be looking at. And when I click it, it'll actually navigate me to the OneNote section, which again is blank due to it being a demo environment, but that's also another really easy way to navigate through Microsoft Teams. So with that being said, I'm going to go over to our keyboard shortcuts since that was mentioned in the chat. In the top right corner and with our ellipses or our three dots, you actually can hit your ellipses, and under settings, you'll see keyboard shortcuts. And in keyboard shortcuts, this will show you all of the different shortcuts that you can do leveraging just your keyboard. And so, April, you mentioned that Control E is the shortcut to hop to the search command. And so you'll see that this is where you'll find, that's where April found that, or maybe she just, loves shortcuts. But if you want to just see, hey, how can I just use my keyboard? I don't want to click around. I don't want to use my mouse. You can go here and it will show you exactly what to click, and you can just kind of poke around and try those. I would love to show you, but even me clicking on my keyboard, I can't, visually show you that. But I did want to open this up and show you that they do have it separated out into your general keyboard shortcuts if you're looking for navigation keyboard shortcuts, or if you're looking for shortcuts that have to do with messaging, as well as meetings, calls, and calendar. What I do also want to what I want to highlight here is that at the bottom, you'll see that we do have a link for our Office Accessibility Center. And this is just, I wanted to click on it to show you that, if you do have any questions around any of the keyboard shortcuts or any accessibility, you'll see that we do have resources already built into our keyboard shortcuts that you can leverage. So let me hop back to my demo environment and click out of our keyboard shortcut. And next, I want to move on to some of our vision. And I see that we have a comment in the chat here. So my users are visually impaired and do not use a mouse. Everything is keyboard navigation. So thank you for sharing that, April. This is why, it's important to show these different features here, because we do have specific users who do not use a mouse and they're using strictly your keyboard. So again, if you do have any users that need to use keyboard specifically and you need keyboard shortcuts, feel free to, hop into your click your ellipses. You can, I don't know if, screenshotting or even just showing your organization and your team where this is, this would be the easiest way for them to be able to kind of start learning and remembering how to best navigate teams leveraging only a keyboard.
It's like a
And
quick table of contents
yes, a
for
quick table of
keyboard.
contents. And I'm sure it'd be even helpful, even if you were a screenshot and maybe just if someone
Mhm.
wanted to make it their wallpaper or just, somewhere a file that they can quickly pull up. That's also super helpful if you have individuals in your organization who leverage the keyboard only. All
Thank you,
right. So
April, so much for sharing. I that was very interesting to think about, the majority of the users in your space using everything on their keyboard.
yes,
That's just it kind of pulls you into exactly why we're talking today. So thank you for sharing.
absolutely. Thank you. And so the next thing that I wanted to move into was we're going to go back to our ellipses in the top right corner, and we're going to go into settings. So settings is where all of the magic happens, if you ask me. Um, First, when you go into settings, you'll see the general tab, and this tab, what I love is that a lot of us we work long hours or our eyes get super tired whenever we're working, or even for those who may have any type of impairment or color blindness, we have this is the first thing that pops up in your settings because vision and how we view work is one of the most important things that we need to consider. And with that being said, right now I'm in default mode, so this is our kind of white and purple themed background, but we also have the opportunity to go into dark mode. Now, some people may use dark mode whenever, they're working at night or maybe after a couple of hours. For me personally, I love staying in dark mode at all times. It's just easier on my eyes. It's not as straining, and I just like the look a little better. So definitely customize your environment in the way in which that works best for you, so that you can work more productively. Moving into high contrast. High contrast is built more for, again, the color blindness support because specific colors may not jump out as easily for those of us who may have color blindness. So we do have those highlighted colors, these super bright blues and yellows that'll make sure that any of the text and specifically the text are yellow, so that whenever anyone's chatting you or if you're reading any type of files or documents, we will be sure that that's more easy to be seen. Let me hop back into our settings. So those are the visual features that I wanted to cover. And quick, before I move on to our next one, I want to see if there's anything in the chat that has to do with vision or anything I need to review. And it looks like Jay just said, I use dark mode on all my Microsoft products. It makes it a lot easier on my eyes, especially in a dark room. I absolutely completely agree. Dark mode is just, I think for me, it's also an aesthetic thing, but I love the ease of it on my eyes as well, Jay. So I identify with you on that. So as far as that's all that we have, for vision as far as Microsoft Teams currently, I definitely believe that we're going to continue to advance that. But next, some of the feedback that we've gotten with Microsoft Teams is, sometimes it's just too much dinging, binging, and noise going on while I'm trying to get work done. So what I want to move into is our privacy, and then we're going to go to notifications right after. But what I want to do is I want to show you how it is that you can manage your priority access while you are trying to get work done. So a lot of us, whenever we're heads down working on training, whether we're studying or maybe if we're in a customer call and we just constantly hear different noises and bings and dings from our internal team, we want to silence that. So if we're in do not disturb, sometimes you're like, I want to be on do not disturb, but I really don't want to miss anything from my manager. I don't want to miss anything from my teammate or maybe someone who I'm expecting to contact me today. And with that being said, you can actually go into your do not disturb settings, and this will allow, and so the manage priority access allows for you to customize your notifications so that if, for instance, I want to always receive notifications from Johanna, from Lydia, and Isaiah, regardless of me being in do not disturb. Go ahead and search for those members, whether that's your manager, your teammates, any partners you work with, and go ahead and add those to your managed priority access to ensure that even when you're on do not disturb and you're trying to minimize the noise, you're not minimizing the noise of the priority users that you want to make sure you're interacting with. So that's just a quick way before we move into all of the customizing your, your different badges and noises. I want to make sure that you know that in Microsoft Teams, there's an opportunity for you to not silence even the most important people and things that you need to come through. So again, that's found in our settings in the top right corner with our ellipses. You're going to click settings, and that's found under privacy, where we're managing our priority access. Another thing, and this is just a quick sidebar, is your blocked contacts. So if you have any contacts that you need to block or that you don't want coming through, you can do that there. And also you can enable your read receipts. If you're someone who's like, I want to make sure I keep my read receipts on so others can know when I read their message and they can be confident in knowing that I've seen it. Fine. If you're like, no, I tend to kind of open up messages and then come back to them later in the day, you can actually turn off your read receipts. And similar to surveys that are in Microsoft Teams, if you have those in your client, you can turn the opportunity to take surveys on or off in your tenant by just changing this toggle. So now that we reviewed some of the do not disturb features and just kind of customizing what comes through, even when you customize your tenant, let's look at what it looks like to actually customize your notifications. So under settings, you'll find that in the notifications, the first thing you'll see is your email. So these missed activity emails are actually found in the top tab of Microsoft Teams right here. So because this is a demo tenant, you may not see any direct activity, but this is where all of your missed replies and mentions and team channels and chats, this is where all of that information is found. And so sometimes it can get a little overwhelming if you continue to hear all of the different noises, or if it just keeps lighting up for you and you're like, I know I'm going to get to it. I just need more time. What you want to do is, again, you're going to go into our magic spot here, our ellipses and our settings under notifications, and you can set the missed activity email to be once every 10 minutes, once every hour, once every 8 hours, or you could just do it once daily. Or if you just don't want those to light up and you're like, I know that I check my team's channels, my chats, my replies and mentions, then you can turn it off altogether. What I tend to like to keep it on is once every 10 minutes. It's not too overwhelming. And if 10 minutes seems to be a little too much for you, you definitely can change it to 1 hour. So that hourly, you can make sure you're keeping up on who's mentioning you and all the different activity that's happening throughout your organization. Next is your appearance and sound. So this again is a very personal preference here. If you want your message previews to be shown whenever you're in chat, if someone were, if Abby were to chat me and she said, "Hi, Gabrielle, how was your holiday?" If you want to see that, if you want your message to show that she said, "How was your holiday?" you can turn that on. If you prefer for it to be just the person and their name, and you can click in and look at the message yourself just to create a more private environment, then you can turn it off. One of the biggest ones are play sound for incoming calls and notifications. This is where all of the dinging is coming from. If anyone's been wondering, and this is where all of it's coming from. If you want incoming Teams calls and chats and meetings and notifications, if you want that sound to be on, you will toggle this on. If that absolutely drives you insane, then definitely keep it off. I know that for some of us, who may, want to may struggle with just getting distracted, or maybe just those noises are very overwhelming for us. We want to probably keep it off and just know that we'll check it as needed. But just make sure that you customize it in a way in which you're not missing any activity. But I did want to make sure I showed you exactly where that is, because even myself, I've been like, why is all this dinging on? And for some reason that was toggled on and I did have to turn it off. So with Teams channels, you also can customize the notifications you get as far as your specific channels. And again, just to bring some clarity there, in Teams, your general channels, or the different channels you create under each team, you can receive notifications from each and every one of those channels if you desire. And it's as long as it's not private and you're a part of that team. But if you're like, I really don't want to hear every single conversation, or I don't want to be notified of every time someone posts, you can opt for just mentions and replies. So something that is a personal mention, if they say at Megan, or they reply to one of your posts, then you can set it so that only those specific notifications come through for your teams and channels. Or if you're looking to customize it and you want to receive, personal mentions via a banner feed, or if you only want it in your missed activity, you can do that as well. So definitely, go around, come in here, poke around and customize it if you need to, if it's not that serious for you. Um, and you just kind of want to only be, oh, sorry, let me go back. If you want me to, if you only want to be notified whenever someone mentions you, then just keep it at mentions and replies. That's typically where I like it. Similar for chat, meetings and calls, people and other, you can, this is just additional customizing that happens in chat and messaging and meetings. Again, it's the same thing. If you want it on your banner and a feed, or if you're only looking for it to be in your feed, you can customize it there. But I really wanted to just kind of quickly go into just the different opportunities to customize and create an environment that is not super distracting. Yes, the goal is to present our accessibility features, but we've learned that, with accessibility comes inclusion, and we don't want to forget about those of us who, it may not be a visible disability, or even, it could be something that, I just get really distracted, or I'm not really, sounds are not important to me because maybe I
Right.
am hard of hearing. So, you kind of want to just turn things off and make them personal to you. And that is, the wonderful benefits of Microsoft, that it's not an umbrella effect. It definitely is very, you can make it so that it's customized to everyone.
What I like about that, Gabrielle, is you
Mhm.
can make this change happen on a weekly basis, or you can go in daily and change the settings. On weeks where I have very heavy study needs or training needs, I'll change my customization options in Teams to the point where I'm not as distracted. On other weeks where I have a little bit of a lighter load, then I take those restrictions off. So I like the ability to just kind of change it up based on what's going on a week to week situation.
Absolutely. And I think you made a really good point that, if you're working, if you're out of office, but you're still getting work done, and you don't want to appear online, and you don't want to receive those notifications, as Abby said, that's a great way, to customize it on the daily. Make sure that you are not, that you're not overworking yourself, or that, you're able to kind of step away when needed. So Teams is definitely a platform to get work done, but in your own way. So that's, as far as Microsoft Teams, that is what I have specifically for what I can click through. What I am going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to go ahead and show you a few features that are a little more difficult to show, being a one woman show here. But I want to go through, live captions and transcriptions, the raise hand feature, a few things that can be done in Teams meetings. So to let me switch back to my PowerPoint here. And while I'm doing that, I would love to know if anyone can come off mute, or if you want to share in the chat what your favorite accessibility feature is in Microsoft Teams, or productivity feature, whether that's before you saw the demo or now. And let me know if you see any raised hands, Abby.
I absolutely will. I really like dark mode. I didn't even realize how much I liked dark mode until we talk about it like this.
Yeah, so your favorite is dark mode. I would
Yep.
say that my favorite, I think one of them is definitely dark mode. I think the other is really being able to, silence all of the notifications.
Mhm.
That's super important to me because it can get a little distracting for someone like me.
Okay,
Um,
awesome. And Daniela said that they learned something new when you showed how to directly chat from the search bar. So those shortcuts are great.
yes, awesome. I'm glad that you learned something new. And don't forget about, the keyboard shortcut, little guide that I showed as well. Definitely, leverage that, because if you don't want to necessarily click around, and you want to just, take a quick sticky note and write down that keyboard shortcut, especially if you use it often, go for it for sure. All right. So moving into our next portion. Again, this is kind of difficult to show during a demo. Just being, going into a team, a meeting, and making sure that I'm muted on each end. So I created, specific slides to go over some of the meeting accessibility features. So while you're in Teams meetings, one of the most popular things that we have going on right now is our live caption and transcription. Um, this specific feature is super important because, for those, for individuals who may be deaf or hard of hearing, live captions is the way that they interact. It's the way that we interact. And even not even only for deaf or hard of hearing, if you know that sometimes you just need to see words as someone is speaking, or even with, the different communication barriers, it's important that we have this opportunity and that we have this feature built in. So this was something very popular and exciting for Microsoft. Something that's been newly added is the transcription. Now, transcription allows for the dialogue to not only be recorded similar to a meeting, so you have a whole script after the meeting, but it also, now with the speaker attribution, it shows who is talking and when. That was some feedback that we received from some of our end users with that. It's great to know what's being said, but who is saying it. It's hard to follow if you don't really know who's talking, especially if we don't all have our cameras on. So this is, transcription was kind of live captions 2.0, and I'm really excited for those of you who are going to have it soon. And for those who are already experiencing it, I hope that you're enjoying the feature. And I think that there's so much more to come as it pertains to transcriptions and live captions. So next we have, next I want to highlight our pinning versus spotlight. Now, pinning and spotlight have been a very popular feature in Microsoft Teams, because now we're in a space where, we didn't know that we were going to have to work this way for this long. And now we're still having to, put on events depending on the industry you work in. If you want to do some type of a panel, or whether, you just, you may need a American Sign Language interpreter built into Microsoft Teams. We recognize that that was a really, really big ask, and there is still continued work being done. But right now, what we can do is, so for one, pinning it versus spotlight, I want to define the two and the differences. So for pinning, what that does is that customizes the screen specifically for you. So if you're saying, hey, I want to make sure that Abby is pinned for me because Abby is a sign language interpreter, and I want to make sure I specifically can see that and not change that for the rest of the meeting. You can do that. So you can pin Abby specifically. And I think I should actually be able to do that here, but I would have to do it, with Spotlight. But you can, try pinning somebody right now, and you'll see that when you pin that person, they actually will be front and center for you. And you should be able to see the content and that person kind of side by side. And that is just kind of, again, a personalized view. For Spotlight, that is for the larger group. Spotlighting is important here because if you do have a group of individuals who you may need to spotlight, 3 people for a panel, or spotlight 2 people for a fireside chat type of view, then you can do that. And so what I want to do is, I think I'm gonna spotlight Abby, and it's okay if your camera's not on Abby. I just want to
I
spotlight
can turn it
her
on.
for everyone, so
And
that you can.
Gabrielle, we have a question about how many people can we spotlight?
Okay, awesome. So with spotlighting, and so I did spotlight Abby, so everyone should see Abby, front and center. As far as how many people, so for spotlight, it actually just reached 7 individuals. You can spotlight up to 7 people, and that's called multi-spotlight. And then for pinning, I do believe that pinning is about 7 as well. You can pin a good amount of people. I think both of them are 7, but definitely more than one person.
Mhm.
I would say up to 7 for both. Definitely try to see with pinning. I know that the multiple spotlight specifically is 7 or less.
Okay, I can look up pinning really quick because I don't know the answer either,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes. So, but you can definitely spotlight and pin multiple people, and that's how we. And I'll go ahead and unspotlight Abby. That is how we've been able to kind of, mirror that whole panel experience and fireside experience, and doing those different events, and really kind of making it making it more real on Microsoft Teams, as we're moving back into being in the office and being able to see each other one on one. So I hope that answered your question, Daniela. All right. So um, and the next thing that I want to just highlight this, and I don't have this necessarily, but you can see on the pinning and spotlight is something that we want to kind of consider, and this is more of a meeting hygiene for what I'm going to discuss, is our mute the participants. So one, when you're joining a team or when you're joining a meeting, you want to make sure that you join muted. Now Microsoft does make it so that you automatically kind of go on mute and it shows you how many people are in the meeting. But a part of meeting hygiene is really just joining muted, just in case if your background's a little loud, or if there's any type of, you don't want there to be any type of interruption, especially for those of us who have different needs, and we don't want to have there any confusion or interrupt any presentations if we're joining late. So that's one just quick example of how to practice meeting hygiene and create a more inclusive environment, similar to raise hand. The raise hand feature is shown right next to your messaging feature where you open up your chat box. It's important that you raise your hand when you have something to say. And another really important tip that I would like to say is when you come off mute and you're speaking in a meeting, it's really great to say, "This is Gabrielle," or "This is Abby," or "This is Angie," or "This is Daniela," just because everyone can't necessarily, you don't want to assume that everyone can see that it's you or just knows your voice. It's just kind of a part of, creating a more inclusive environment and meeting. So for managers, for team leads, even for team members, you don't even have to always be a manager to do this. If you know that, your team may not necessarily, come off mute and say their name and then begin speaking, you may want to, just practice that, not only because maybe someone on your team doesn't have a specific ability. It may just be that when you're in a certain environment, you want to make sure that you're practicing that so that, you're used to doing it and it just becomes second nature for you. And so, with that being said, I actually want to move into some statistics. So, one thing that we like to say is that, there are accessibility is a responsibility for one, and there are over 1 billion people in the world who have disabilities, many of whom need assistive technology, but only 1 in 10 have access to the products that are needed. And this means that many of them can't fully participate in our economies and societies. Accessible technology can allow them to fully participate, and so are you. You being someone who advocates, whether you have a visible disability or not, or whether even if you don't identify, being that advocate and really pushing out these different features and meeting hygienes is a part of creating that inclusive and accessible environment. Um, in 2004, a Forrester study, they found that 57% of current working age computer users may benefit from accessible technology. Because many of them have mild to severe vision, hearing, dexterity, speech, or cognitive difficulties. So this is why, this is a priority of ours here at Microsoft, to continue to educate on what's available, and also just continue to say that we're working just like everyone else to create a more inclusive and productive environment. And so I also just wanted to highlight that, 70% of disabilities are invisible. This is not a space where we're saying you have to, come out and say, "This is what I struggle with. This is what, is challenging for me on the day to day." But just remember that 70% of disabilities are invisible, meaning that all of them are not going to be very clear to you. But it's important to practice that inclusive behavior and to create a workplace that is inclusive, so that everyone who joins, your new employees, your current employees, know that you are making efforts to ensure that everyone has a productive experience and is able to get their best work done. So, to conclude today's Lunch and Learn, I want to emphasize that it's important to understand that accessibility is both a responsibility and an opportunity. Recognizing this responsibility Recognizing this responsibility, we are passionate about creating environments and products and services that are accessible for everyone. Creating an inclusive and productive space for all users to succeed is a part of what we do. And I just want to, thank you all for taking time out of your day. The 38 minutes that we did do it, taking time out of your day to learn how you can create a more inclusive environment, whether you're a team member, whether you're a manager, whatever role you may be in, you are a part of the responsibility and the opportunity to advance this specific movement here. And with that being said, I do want to provide you with some resources, because I know this is a lot of information. I know that, in the next 15 minutes, we're going to remember some of the most exciting things that we remember. And some of the things we're going to say, I need to go back to the recording. But what I want to do is provide these links to you, and what I'll do is I'll pop them in the chat as soon as I stop sharing and we move into Q&A. But these are all of the accessibility features that you can find in Microsoft 365 at this aka.ms/Microsoft 365A11Y. You also can learn about our commitment to accessibility at our aka.ms/accessibility site. And there is another resource at the bottom that helps, that will just, give more information on how to create an inclusive work environment. So I'll pop those in the chat once we conclude. And now I would like to move into our Q&A portion. I know that we have about 20 minutes, and I want to make sure we get through everyone's questions, comments, or even just if you have a tip that maybe I didn't review today, because there are so many different ways to create this type of inclusive environment. We are going to open up the floor to do so. And Abby, if you have any comments, happy to take those as well. Oh, you're on mute, Abby.
Thanks. I hate when that happens. Like I work for Teams. How do I forget that I have to unmute myself? Daniela had a question about if there's going to be future webinars for accessibility like this and while additional features and updates are added. It's something that Gabrielle and I have discussed. We do have a YouTube channel that is going to have the recording from October and this event today. And that is going to be a place that we are going to be putting new videos, short content excerpts as features roll out. But yeah, as more features do roll out and we get several new features, I think a larger session like this, 30 to 60 minutes, would be beneficial. So Daniela, I'll be sure to put you on the list for that distribution whenever we plan that out. But in the meantime, keep an eye on that YouTube channel. I'll include that in a link as well in the chat.
Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Daniela. And I'm excited to know that, if you're inquiring about future webinars, that helps me know that I've done my job here. And then also just adding on to what Abby was saying, as a larger accessibility group across federal, we are working on ensuring that, we're delivering the resources that are in our, government clouds and making sure that you stay up to date with those items. So there are efforts, being made to make sure that we have a form of communications and presentations that are going to be respective to organizations who may have larger Section 508 groups. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
I'll just put you all on the list.
Yes. And so we have a few more people who would like to be on the list.
Sure.
Awesome. And so are there any questions from the group?
I do want to include, so I'm going to put the registration link. So speaking of future webinars, we do have, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, a webinar. It's not specific to inclusivity and accessibility. It is more of an apps in Teams showcase and kind of showing what 22 could look like in a remote/hybrid work environment for our federal customers. So I'm going to put that registration link if you have any interest. It is 5 p.m. Eastern on Thursday.
Awesome. And that's our December 2nd. I think I actually have that right here. Is this correct?
Yeah, exactly. Look at you go. There we go.
Yes. Yes.
Great. I'm going to turn off the recording, and that way if we do have any questions, it's not going to be on the